Something Sims and I talked about earlier today. The best news out of the first 3 weeks is the fact that 48 out of 48 games were played and that the pandemic wasn't an issue. Maybe that counts as a jinx because not long after we wrapped PFT Live earlier this morning, the news came out that the Titans and Vikings had closed their facilities until further notice because of an outbreak within the Titans organization. 3 players, 5 members of the non-playing staff testing positive, contact tracing, further testing. The Titans shut down until Saturday, for crying out loud. At least until Saturday. Good luck practicing and preparing for a football game when you can't get into the building to have football practice. But, Charean, this was a stunner on one hand because I think we got to the point where we thought, hey, 3 weeks, we're fine. This is good. They've mastered this. They've cracked the code. They've reached a level of no infiltration. And then the first moment we exhale a little bit, here it is.
Yeah, and Roger Goodell's statement today, he said this is not a surprise. And I think probably the bigger surprise is that it lasted this long, that they made it this long, playing all these games without any kind of interruption. And we don't know if this is going to be an interruption yet or not. There's a lot of things they can do here, and maybe not the Titans and Steelers get to play. But I think the biggest concern probably, Mike, is it's 3 different position groups. It's a defensive tackle, long snapper, and a tight end. So now you've got 3 different rooms to worry about as opposed to just, hey, it's all in the quarterback's room or the running back's room or whatever. You've got various rooms here you've got to worry about with those players. So I do think this is a concern, and a concern whether the Steelers will be traveling to the Titans to play this week.
And they've got the point of care testing where they can quickly determine without sending the test sample off to a laboratory whether or not it's positive. They still will send samples off to a laboratory. By tomorrow, we should have a pretty good idea of where things stand because presumably they hustled to get testing done today after getting a bunch of positives back, presumably today from yesterday. They have daily testing, but the thing is, the players still have days off. I assume they don't come in to get tested on the days that they are off. So that Monday, Tuesday window can be a little incomplete as to when guys are being tested. But the reality is, it's possible that there were players who were shedding virus, as the technical term goes, when the Titans were playing the Vikings on Sunday. So far, the Vikings, no positives, which is good. And we just wait now. Everything is on hold while time passes and assurances are obtained that there isn't a full-blown outbreak. But as you mentioned, with a guy who is positive with 3 different position groups, you have to be concerned about that. And if a defensive tackle's positive, you got to worry about the offensive lineman from the Vikings that he was pressing up against from time to time during that 3-hour window on Sunday.
And, you know, Mike, the thing that instantly came to my mind was when we talked about Roger Goodell saying, hey, there's no competitive advantage for teams that have fans in the stands, and some do, some don't. There's no competitive advantage. And now we may get a situation where the Steelers are going to be allowed to practice all week long. Same with the Texans. And then they go out and play the game, and the Titans have, maybe 1 day of practice, and they can't practice off-site. It's not like they can go somewhere else and Ryan Tannehill can throw to his receivers. That's not allowed either. They're not allowed to do that. So they're just doing virtual meetings all this week. And playing the Steelers, and as complicated as their defense is, this is a huge competitive disadvantage for the Titans if they have to go into that game with a Saturday practice and play on Sunday.
Yeah, I think what Roger Goodell should have said when the question came up about the potential competitive advantage of having fans present and not having fans present, this is nothing compared to the competitive advantages and disadvantages that may be visited upon teams if we get ourselves into an outbreak. George Atala, the NFLPA spokesman, was on earlier with Brother from Another. Here's some of what Atala had to say about the level of anxiety that this news is creating.
So are you confident, George, that again, none of this virus is unpredictable, but just based on what you know as you sit here now, do you feel pretty good that this can be contained, or is this perhaps something bigger in the beginning of it? What's your gut tell you right now? I hope it's not an unfair question, but just...
I'm nervous.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I'm nervous. I really am. I'm nervous like the rest of us. I mean, look, the reality is you can trust the virus, you can't trust humans. And we know now how the virus spreads. We know more about infection. We know about asymptomatic spread. We know that these things actually protect us from the spread, and you're seeing even community spread. Like, let's take the NFL out of it. New York City is starting to have community spread over 3% again, and I think that's a result of people having fatigue. But this is going to be a grind for everybody until we have some sort of better solution or a vaccine.
Again, that's George Atala, NFLPA spokesman. I love George. This is a serious situation, but I cannot let that clip go without saying Matt Patricia would have told George to sit up straight in that chair when he's talking. Other than that, I have no problem with what he said. Look, here's the reality. There is fatigue. There is complacency. And one of the things the NFL was concerned about is complacency setting in when teams begin to fade from contention, Charean, later in the year, and as the numbers begin to spike, as the flu season begins, people are indoors more. Assuming the NFL can get through this, and that's a big assumption at this point, if nothing else, this is a reminder, a very valuable reminder, that the virus does set the agenda. As George said, you can trust the virus, you can't trust people, and maybe a scare like this will help avert a bigger problem later in the year that could unfold as we get teams who they don't have a chance, their players don't care. The one thing the players need to realize, even if their teams are mathematically eliminated or as a practical matter have a fork stuck in them and are done, if games are missed, you don't get paid. So your livelihood, your financial security hinges on being able to play the games that to you otherwise don't mean anything. And also you want to play the games, you create film, you may end up with a different team next year, you want to compare favorably to the other people, and it's still competition. But to the extent that there is that concern that guys could get a little bit lax later in the year, especially from teams that aren't successful, this is that warning shot. Do not let up. Do not relent. And I hope at the end of the day, Charean, they find out exactly what happened. How did that virus get into the building, and what can they do to prevent it in the future?
Yeah, you know, Shane Bowen, the defensive play caller and outside linebackers coach for the Titans, the first word came out yesterday that he didn't make the trip with the team to the Vikings, that he had COVID. He went on the COVID list. We assume now that he had COVID. So did he spread it to the rest of the team? How did this go? And you just don't know, and they may never know. But that's was our first word, that something was amiss with this team. And now here we are with the players who've tested positive, and things have shut down. But here's another thing, Mike. I think this serves as a warning perhaps to the fan situation in the NFL. The Titans were supposed to have 7,000 fans this week at their game, then 8,500 on October 11th, and then 10,000 on October 18th. Are we still going to do that? We don't know the answer to that quite yet, but I do think this serves as a warning that, yes, we all have the fatigue, and I'm not wiping down everything like I used to and doing all those things. And I shook the doctor's hand today and did some of those things that we wouldn't have done maybe a month, 2 months ago. But we've all got to be careful. And in the NFL, they especially need to be careful. So as you said, they keep playing and keep getting paid and all of that stuff. We want to see games.
A compelling data point in this will be whether or not any of the Vikings players end up with it, assuming that there was a situation where Titans players were positive with the virus on Sunday. Because one of the things the NFL has believed throughout this process, the open air setting, even if you're in a dome with the high roof, with the ventilation, it's enough to prevent or minimize spread because you don't have the droplets that are just hanging around like they are in an indoor setting where there's poor ventilation. So if no Vikings end up with this, that's actually a good thing, and it will show that the spread was confined to airplanes, hotels, whatever, buses, whatever spaces that the Titans players may have been in. So what happens this weekend with the Steelers going to Tennessee, the Vikings going to Houston? Everything is on hold right now. There's a report that the NFL intends to go forward on Sunday with Steelers-Titans as scheduled, which, Charean, as you mentioned, creates a competitive disadvantage for the Titans because they don't get to practice and the Steelers do. Another possibility is to move the game to Monday, which could maybe give the Titans a chance to practice on Saturday. There isn't much you could do, though, on Saturday. Now, the Packers tend to push their week up to the point where they have a walkthrough the day before the game. So if you're the Titans, you could have a semi-real practice on Saturday, I guess, a walkthrough on Sunday and play Monday night. But that's going to be a challenge for the Titans because it's going to be very dissimilar to what the Steelers are doing. The other possibility, and the first thing I did, I started looking at schedules. When is the Titans bye? When is the Steelers bye? Well, the Titans bye is week 7. The Steelers bye is week 8. So you can't just bump it to the mutual bye week. But the Steelers and the Ravens play week 7. The Steelers and the Ravens have a week 8 bye. It would be easy to reconfigure things so that the Steelers and Titans have their bye week 4. The Steelers and Titans play week 7. The Steelers and Ravens play week 8. So the Ravens move their bye up a week. The only problem is for the Steelers, and again, crap happens. You're going to have competitive disadvantages. You're going to have inconveniences. The Steelers may very well end up not having a bye week other than missing a game because you spend all week practicing for a game that doesn't happen. And then you spend your bye week practicing for a game that does happen when you otherwise would have been off. So, look, that happened a couple of years ago when it was, I think, Buccaneers-Dolphins. Remember, there was a hurricane game that had the plug pulled on it, and the teams played consistently 16 weeks after that. They never had a bye week either. That happens, and that may be what happens here.
Yeah, a lot of things could happen with this for sure. Mike, here's a question, though. If you're the commissioner, would you consider shutting down the Steelers facility and just saying, hey, we're going to go ahead and play the game? Both facilities reopen on Saturday. This is the way it is. Competitive, no competitive advantage for anyone. You're just going to have to do virtual meetings, come back Saturday, practice, and play the game Sunday. Could you see that happening?
That's a great idea. And yes, I would. I think that's the best way to create an apples-to-apples situation. Hey, look, the Titans are strapped by this reality, and the Steelers have to be subjected to an equal situation. But here's my response to it. The Steelers haven't allowed an outbreak to happen in their facility. The Titans have. This is part of the price you pay for not, because this is the ultimate pass-fail. Either you do keep the virus out or you don't. And if however it happened, and we may never know, however it happened, wherever it happened, whenever it happened, the Titans get an F and the Steelers get a P, so the Steelers get to practice and the Titans don't. And that's the price you pay for not ensuring that you keep the virus out of your facility. I mean, that's why I'm a firm believer teams shouldn't get a dispensation if they don't have enough guys ready to go, if they are wiped out at a position group. Well, you should have, number one, kept the virus out. Number two, plan your roster accordingly to account for the possibility that you're going to not have all of your players. They don't do that for injuries. They shouldn't do that for this. That'll be another interesting situation if they decide that there is a group of Titans players who will be on the COVID-19 reserve list. The rest of them are good to go. Will they say to the Titans, you still don't have to play this week because we want you to be able to play when you have all of your guys? I don't think that should be the case because at some point there's responsibility on the Titans for allowing this virus into their building.
I would not want to be in charge of anything right now because these are hard decisions to make, and whatever decision you make, it's going to be criticized by somebody, and not everybody is going to be happy with whatever decision you do make. So the commissioner's in this position. He's paid gazillions, as we know, to make these decisions, and he's got a hard decision to make, but he's going to have to make this. And maybe he does go with what you said. Titans allowed it to enter their facility, whether fault of their own or not. It got there. The Steelers have not. Maybe it is a competitive advantage for the Steelers this week. I would love to see this game. I was looking forward to this game with both teams getting to practice all week. But I do think if the Steelers get to practice and the Titans don't, I can't see the Titans winning this game even if they have home field advantage.
This was going to be a dose of cold water for the Titans anyway. The three teams they barely beat are 1-8. A combined 6-0 pair of opponents were coming in with the Steelers and the Bills. So, yeah, I don't think it was going to go well for the Titans anyway, potentially. Now it becomes even harder, and it'll be interesting to see what that does to the betting lines. Is it off the board? When's it on the board? Will they take action on it? We've never had a situation like this where one team can't prepare and the other team can, as a practical matter. And, Charean, you mentioned the possibility of the Tom Brady type of gathering at a local high school. They're not going to let the guys do it. Now, does that stop them from doing it on their own? If they do it discreetly enough, I guess it doesn't. if they do it outside of the probing eyes of Big Brother, and Big Brother, as we know, is all of us carrying around the cell phone devices that can spot whatever it is that may be happening. But ideally, they'd be prevented from doing that. The idea at this point, contain the spread, contact trace, testing, and ensure that whoever has it is isolated. The people who don't have it stay away, and we get to a point where they can play football this weekend and just get the games in. And again, there will be competitive disadvantages far greater than not having fans at the games as the season unfolds if outbreaks happen.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.